Yeah, this is an El Clasico, but we are now with the new generation. Praggnanandhaa against Johann Sebastian Christiansen. And there you go, the trademark stuff. Johann Sebastian is not going for the traditional classical lines. He's trying to mix things up. He goes for the d6, h6, g6, bishop g7 position.
So he's just having fun over there on the king side. He has fianchettoed his bishop. Later, if that knight moves out the way, f5 will be an idea for black. And white has already expanded on the queen side. That's over and done with. But this could get King's Indian style over on the king side.
Yeah, it's a very special pawn structure. Yeah, white was rushing with his pawn all the way to a6. It did not impress or surprise Johann Sebastian at all. Look at his clock situation. He has blitzed out all his moves.
And some of his moves are not especially difficult, but the knight at a5, I'm not sure I love that decision, Peter, because if the pawn pushes to b4, that knight could get trapped. So we are seeing a position that's getting tactical all of a sudden. The knight on a5 stranded over there. I think he's going to regret not putting on e7 rather than a5.
Yeah, it's a mysterious kind of stuff, but yeah, he's trying to break out from that box on the queen side. Yeah, he's using the moment. Yeah, b5, c5. The knight might retreat to c6, and he will get perfect harmony in a classical Spanish spirit.
And that a6 pawn, it's kind of a liability. Don't take it yet, though. If the bishop takes on a6, pawn b4 nets white a piece because they're two in a row, and the bishop on a6 is not defended behind the knight on a5.
Yeah, I feel that it's probably time to go back to c6, but there's also some argument to play c5, c4. Yeah, okay. Johann Sebastian sticks to classical ideas. Knight bd2.
And
will we see?
Given a question mark, which seems especially harsh, I think that white probably was better suited striking with d4 in the center, and this is maybe a little bit too slow.
Yes, I want to highlight that this pawn on a6 does an incredible job hindering black's typical development. Eventually, the bishop can't really move to b7 like in the typical classical Spanish structures. Clearly now white is going for d4. Also that bishop eyeing the a7 pawn. Eventually, after a lot of trade on d4, we might be seeing a problem with the a7 pawn there.
And that's why the black queen went up to e7. It protects the pawn on a7. It wasn't the best move, but it makes perfect sense. The advantage in white's favor all of a sudden. I think d5, maybe pushing that pawn forward is the right way, but black will hop with the knight to b4. And Peter, that a6 pawn, I think eventually it can be gobbled.
Yes, white has to be careful because white senses that this is a golden opportunity. There are chances. There are also ideas to play in Magnus' spirit. D takes e5, D takes e5, knight b3, going after the c5 square. That's also quite tempting.
And maybe we should not release the tension so soon. And Praggnanandhaa plays knight b3 for that reason. I said d5 at first. You said d takes e5. But he says, no, let me wait on that. D takes e5 now a threat. d5 can still be played if you want to go for it, unless black takes on d4. But in taking on d4, that a7 pawn becomes a much clearer target.
Yes, I'm honestly loving the move knight b3. It's very much in my spirit. Okay, rook d8, clearly intending to stop d takes e5. But how does Pragg react to it?
Great question, because d5, knight b4, still very unclear to me, as the knight can capture the bishop on c2 or that pawn on a6. So he plays d5, invites the knight up to b4. The cameras are just a split second behind the post. But knight a5, Peter, I love that move.
Yes, eyeing the c6 square. That's the weak spot in black's position. And Pragg will be targeting the knight on b4 with something like queen d2. And if that black knight will capture on c2, then the c6 square will be an eternal problem.
So it looks like a great decision made by Johann Sebastian Christian. We just saw it on the camera. It was already played on the board. Bishop to d7, covering the c6 square, ignoring the a6 pawn, also hanging the a7 pawn. But if bishop takes a7, the a6 pawn probably will be gathered by a rook a8 maneuver, and I don't think you get to keep it.
Yeah, that's the feeling. But white also has some knight b7 jumps somewhere. Probably it's premature because rook dc8 will be a double attack on the bishop on c2 and some tactics with knight takes a6, using the fact that the knight is loose then on b7. Yeah, one needs to be careful here.
And look at that. Bishop b1, knight takes a6. The response, as we're seeing right now, And I think for Praggnanandhaa, he's trying to figure out, do I play knight c6 now? And you saw him raise his hand, then he took it back, but knight c6 looked very tempting. Instead, he actually drops the knight back to b3, aiming for a6 and a7.
Yes, but we have bishop c8 defense on the board already, repeating once. Pragg definitely will not repeat another time. Knight c6 already on the board. Takes.
Okay, he took the knight on a6 rather than the bishop on c6, so an interesting choice there. I think the knight would have slid into c5 had the bishop been captured, and the pawn on c6 would have been straight. Now, a7 is a goner. The bishop on b1 will come back to d3 in the near future, so white should be slightly better thanks to that pawn on d5 restricting black's pieces.
Yes, and the lovely bishop on e3. Clearly, white's knight will start a journey. Then another knight will come towards the a5 square. It's just a matter of time when we're going to see that.
Such a great point by you. The knight can also go to b4, knight e1, d3, b4, and into c6. So you do have your knight rerouting. And the bishops for white, clearly better than the bishops for black. The b5 pawn is loose. The light square bishop staring into a brick wall. The black bishop on g7 staring into its own pieces. White has the advantage, but is it enough?
Well, it should be enough in a classical game, but we are talking about blitz game here. The clock situation, controlling the clock with few seconds the clock will be critical. Yeah, Johann Sebastian is giving up on the b5 pawn, but at the same time trying to create some counterplay. Yeah, wow, bishop takes d5, e4. This is the Breyer spirit.
Yes, what a find by him. And you could sense it. Like, he went bishop takes d5 with some emphasis. Now his pieces have life, so it's not a one-sided game anymore. We're about to see material even up. I would even go as far to say that because of the shift here, that Johann Sebastian Christensen should be feeling good about his chances.
Exactly, yeah. This is the psychological situation. Probably just play queen e8. But, okay, one has to be super precise still.
I like your suggestion. Queen e8, just keeping everything defended. I think he grabbed his queen back to d8 and then put it back on d7. So he's not sure where to go.
And he put it on e8. Okay, great, good.
And look at the clock situation. Johann Sebastian Christian down under 20 seconds. Pragg at about 20 seconds himself. Both players undoubtedly nervous. And Pragg knows he's looking across the board, but everything's defended.
Yes, and if bishop e2, efc, bishop fc, which I believe had happened, then black can start rerouting his knight with knight d7, knight e5, start jumping.
And actually, bishop e2 takes. Queen e5 was the choice. Aiming at the b2 pawn, the d5 pawn is a bit loose. The bishop is stuck on f3. Peter, I have to say, I prefer the knight over the light square bishop in positions like this.
Yeah, there is so much dynamic. There is so much to play for. And Praggnanandhaa down to 8 seconds. Going after the b4 pawn.
And Johann Sebastian Christensen under 10 seconds himself. He needs to find an idea here. The b4 pawn can't be defended. He brings his knight back to e8, it looks like. He wants to take on b2 after the trade on b4.
Yeah, but this is slightly passive. Takes, queen takes b2. The pawn on h6 is hanging. That's the problem.
Oh, but wow. Do you see that? At first, Pragg was going to queen a4, and then he saw that what you said, the h6 pawn is loose. Extra pawn for white with the bishop pair.
Yeah, very unfortunate for Johann Sebastian that in this time scramble he blundered that pawn, but still he's trying to set up some fortress. Knight is heading.
Really good chances here, I think, for Praggnanandhaa to win and stay at 5/5, even if the evaluation bar is towards the center.
Yes, especially with this time control, white cannot really blunder anything. He will keep on improving his position. King f3, h4, g4, somehow breaking. Yeah, king f3, g4. That will be the break.
You need to create a pawn that white can target. Right now, the pawn structure is solid for black. You are down one. The knight on a4, it's hopping around. Back to c3, it goes. And look at Praggnanandhaa. He can't give up his dark squared bishop for the knight because the game would immediately be a draw.
Yes, okay. Now at least black got some setup, but bishop c2, putting pressure on the f5 pawn. That's a problem.
Well, the king went up to f6, it looks like, just protecting the pawn. And look at this. The bishop wrapped around with check, winning f5.
Yeah, stellar technique by Praggnanandhaa.
He's done everything correctly to this point. It's still not that easy, though, because the pawns are split. And so if black is able to blockade, then you would have a chance to survive. But I think the f pawn and the h pawn, because they're split, precisely because of that, they can distract some of black's pieces.
Yeah, everything is protected. There is no way also stopping the f or h pawn no matter which one Pragg prefers to push.
And Johann Sebastian Christian, he shook his head. He's not happy with his play in this game. But Praggnanandhaa and all his fans should be thrilled. What a great game by him. Here comes the H pawn. The bishop slams on G5. Peter, I just don't see how Black can possibly stop them.
Yeah, not at all. And Pragg actually plays it very professionally. He does not want to touch the F4 pawn just to make sure that Black's knight is limited on C4. He's not able to jump to E5.
But Pragg seems to be getting a little bit nervous. Some moves are trickling in. There was H6 check. The king went up to G6. It looks like the white king slid into E4 and went back. So hopefully the moves, they come on in because they will have to catch up with the players. Maybe we just zoom in on the players if we can because the board is clearly not catching up. Oh, and there it goes as soon as I asked for it all at once.
Yes, quite a lot of action. Nothing really changed. Pragg is marching with his king just like he has done against Vahidov in the rapid section. It's all over.
It is all over. You can see it on Johann Sebastian Christensen's face. The white king went to C6, took on D6. That was a great reference that you made there, by the way, with Praggnanandhaa infiltrating. And here we have a close-up on the players. The last moves are being made. Oh, you see Praggnanandhaa like, where are you putting the bishop? I don't know.
Yes, it's important to clarify, yeah, not that suddenly then this bishop appears on 2 different or even 3 squares.
And it looks like a queen is about to appear. Look at Praggnanandhaa. He grabs in his hand, takes a knight, wins the game. Praggnanandhaa stays with a perfect score, 5 out of 5.